Hi, Phil here again. Welcome to the next stage. We're talking today about technology in senior maths. Well, first of all, we've got to really, the elephant in the room there is, what do you actually mean by technology? Are we just talking about high-end technology? And the answer to that is no. Generally, we mean technology anywhere from pen and paper all the way through to the high-end stuff. But it's assumed that we also allow students to use pen and paper. But there's some examples: scientific calculators, instruments, graphics calculators, etc., as well as some online apps that you might know of and have used yourself from time to time. Geometry applications and graphic software, for example, like Desmos, etc. And so the technology there we're going to talk about today is about the high-end stuff, and I'll give you a couple of examples why we're actually going to use it, but some also want some of the pitfalls. First of all, why use technology? I mean, technology there is I believe, in my experience, is there to support learning. And if it supports their learning, then great, use it. Having said that, of course, there's always the time and place to use it as a big number cruncher, which in the senior curriculum is fantastic. It allows students to actually explore problems that, when I went to school without using calculators, some of the numbers there were just, just made it impossible for us to do any really big number crunching. So that's what technology allows us to do. It allows us to also to find out the red herring. What are some of the anomalies that occur? We can ask ourselves, what if we change this particular variable? They can start investigating and playing with the data, or playing with models or equations or graphs or whatever they're doing, whatever they're using the technology for. It enables them to ask questions and answer questions really quickly, and also allows the kids to crunch some pretty big numbers, or pretty big sets of numbers even, which, again, going back into the day back in the black and white TV days, we couldn't have possibly considered. So what about for teachers? What's the benefit for teachers? We've got a whole lot of differentiated learners in our classroom, and the technology allows those students their access to problems that maybe they might not have had in previous times. And not talking about just differentiated learners in terms of, say, ability. It can be all sorts of differentiated learners. And technology certainly gives them a greater access and greater equity to the learning of mathematics. The technology also allows us to plan cross-concept problems. I stop there in terms of saying cross-curricular. Certainly it can. But we're just going to talk about the maths, but cross-concept problems, and also it gives us more time to allow kids to investigate. So the winner here is the fact that technology saves a lot of time that previously students would have had to spend time doing number crunching things. Okay. So where are we going with this in terms of technology? What are the mandatory things? First of all, in knowledge and procedures, one of the 3 general objectives that's accessible. There are 4 of them. Select and use appropriate technology is one of the bullet points there that says we have to do. We have to teach students how to select and use the technology, which leads us to think, well, if we are teaching them how to use it, does that mean that we must know it first? The other thing about knowledge and procedures is that we've got to be really careful that if students rely solely on using the technology to solve the problem, then that might not give them enough evidence to say that they are able to fulfill the knowledge and procedures. Now, I'll give you an example of there. I thought I wrote a really good question a few years ago that asked them to find this limit of this particular function that was undefined for the value of the limit. Thought this is a really good question. I had to factorise. And one boy, when I marked the test, said, graphics calculator said 2. And it just blew me out the water. But I wasn't able to give the student any credit for being able to find limits, to be able to do the algebra of to factorising and cancelling out factors and making the delineation that might be discontinuous for that value. So we've got to be careful for some students who rely solely on using technology, and you'll have them in your class. Don't worry about that. The other one is communication justification. The bullet point there is justify the reasonableness of the results obtained from technology. So first of all, then that leads you, if you're going to really analyse that, you'd say, well, we've got to give them opportunity to get results obtained from technology that they then can justify the reasonableness to it. So it's actually mandatory for us to give the students that opportunity to do that. And I think that's pretty important. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples. First one, when we're asking questions of statistics, I guess first thing we're going to do is make sure that we're asking a question. But masses of data can be found at the Australian Bureau of Statistics. I've got the website just there. Drill down into it, you can find heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of stuff. So here's a good question, you know, if people live in Nerang, are they younger than those who live in Tallebudgera? Now, why would we ask that question? I mean, access to, you know, public parks or facilities that younger people might want to have access to compared to older people and older dynamics. So they're questions that actually have some sort of substance to it. So what do we do with that in terms of the technology? So if we do go to the ABS, I've just got there a couple of spreadsheets that were available, and I can drill down into there and have a look at the masses of data that I've just got there for Tallebudgera and Nerang, and then I can start answering the question. So where's the technology that I can use in there? Well, how do I find, well, what statistical data do I need to find? Am I going to be doing box plots? Am I going to be doing box and whisker plots? And now we can start using the technology to help those kiddies to answer that question, which is younger. I know I found out the suburb that I live in, the average age is pretty low, and the poor kids who live there have got nothing to do, which made me think about that particular question. All right, so what about if we just hang on there for a second? If you want to pause the video there and get back to it, we might talk about this again in a shoot. But what about if you asked your own question? I'm not saying, you know, how is technology going to make learning better for students, but what question can you ask? And how is technology going to make the learning for students better? And what would be good if you could write your responses up on the discussion board. I'll have a look at them. But, you know, in true spirit of collaboration, have a look at what other people have said. It might be good to have a look at what they say, and it also be good for your folio that you can or portfolio of activities that you might want to take with you on your journey of teaching. But yeah, read what the other people have said, and you can write your own comment also. And as I said, I'll have a look at them also to be good to see what you come up with. All right, on a similar theme sort of thing, but a different type of modelling. You know, when is the population of Niger going to exceed 50 million people? Now, I just picked Niger. It's an African country where the population is going absolutely gangbusters. But can a country like Niger sustain a population of 50 million? So if there's a little website there for you to have a look, go and have a look. Here's the data I've got here. There's a stack of stuff there. But I have a look at the data there of what's happening to the population since 1965. And that's what it looks like to me. Now I can use technology now to find a line of best fit. What would it look like? What's the equation? What's our R-squared value? Blah, 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 blah. And then I can extrapolate up to 50 million. What might be interesting then is you say, well, how does that compare to Australia? When is Australia's population going to exceed 50 million? Because the population of Niger currently and the population of Australia pretty close. So I wonder what's going to happen. You know, a good question to ask. So there's an example how we might use technology. I'm not going to show you all of the technology that I would use in this particular problem, but there's a start with some ideas about, you know, finding line of best fit, etc., etc., etc. And, you know, again, once again, you might be able to put two sets of data together, compare Niger with Australia, etc. Let's move on. Okay, one of the things that I do and have done for quite a while now is what I like to do when I'm doing assessment tasks is have a look at, just do a little check-in. And this particular criterion here is technology. I also do it for initiative and application, etc. But what I do is I put a continuum there from low use of technology up to high use of technology. I think I just did that the wrong way around. But if I look at the little dots there, and I'd say, I would then analyse it and say, am I doing the best thing for the kids? Because that's who we're doing it for. Is this really the best way in which I can use technology to help the students? So there's one thing you can do. You can also do it in your classroom. Have a look at in a particular unit that you might want to plan. I don't know what I just did then. Unit that you might want to plan, and have a look at how you're using the technology within that unit, and see whether you're using technology on that continuum. Finally, in terms of using technology in assessment, I'll just sort of say this, that I don't think it's appropriate to ask students in assessment, and I'm not talking about just exams, to be using technology that they haven't been learning about in class. I think that's a bit sad for the day when kids are learning by I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I don't think the kids should have to learn how to use the thing in a particular assessment piece. I think if we're going to do it in an assignment and we're going to do regression, we're going to use graphic software, or we're going to use geometry software, I think we should know how to use that before we give them any assessment piece. Don't do the poor kids. All right, that's just finally. And hey guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch up in tutorials. Bye for now.